Hello and
Hello.
welcome. Welcome to Before the Storm, Town Hall Theater's companion to our fundraising production of FantasticLand. Woo! My name is Briel Pomerantz, and I play Miranda Tots, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I'm so excited to be moderating this first episode of Before the Storm, and so pleased to be part of this fundraising event for Lafayette Town Hall Theater. It's literally my hometown theater. I grew up in Lafayette, and it's one of my theatrical homes. So excited to be part of this and to be doing this. So with me today are Mike Bockoven, who wrote FantasticLand, a novel.
Hello.
There we go. Michelle Ianiro, who adapted Mike's work for our theatrical fundraising event.
Hi.
And Gretchen Lee Salter, who plays Adrienne Jakes, who is our interviewer. So welcome, lovely humans. And let's get to some questions. So first, I'm going to turn to Mike, our original author of the novel, FantasticLand. Can you tell us a little bit about your book? What is it about in your own words?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. So FantasticLand is my first novel, and the basic gist of it kind of came about as a as a consequence. We were talking a little bit about off air about getting back to theme parks of a trip to Disney World I took with my family, and I remember walking around Disney World and just thinking, how could this go wrong? Right? You know, what?
Oh yeah.
What could happen here? And so the basic gist of the book is it's about a theme park called FantasticLand that is situated in Florida. It's competing against Disney and Universal, and a hurricane stronger than anyone thought possible gets further inland than possible and floods FantasticLand and all the staff that had stayed behind. And when they are rescued 6-ish weeks later, they found just all sorts of carnage and gore, that people had been killing each other, that tribes had formed, and it becomes this giant social media news sensation. And the book is written in an epistolary form, so it's a bunch of interviews that tell the story from 24 different perspectives, I believe it is, about what happened, how you got from A to B. So that's the concept of the book in a nutshell.
Yeah, so fascinating. I mean, I got to read the script that, I've read part of the novel, and it's just so great. So how do you feel about your work being adapted into sort of this theatrical event?
Man, first time. I'm a newbie at this. I know community theater and just from where I am, but man, there are some talented folks in this cast. There, Michelle just did a great job, just kind of grabbing hold of the concept with both hands, and she told me right at the beginning that we were not going to change a whole lot, and I'm like, no, please change what you want, because I come at writing from what I consider not to be a terribly literary standpoint. I'm kind of more in the genre sandbox, right? I'm looking to kind of play around with genre and kind of have some fun there. And Michelle totally got that just from right off the bat. And it's been so cool, to be honest with you, to see this happen and to see it start and see it on the page, and then see the actors kind of take it and see the little tweaks that have been made. And man, you folks at Town Hall, you are competent and passionate, and you know what you're doing. So
thank you. That's awesome.
Woo, great. So I'm sure everyone out there can't wait to see it, and we'll be playing the trailer at the end. We premiere on tomorrow. It's gonna be crazy, but I know it's like insane.
I can't believe it's already here. Yeah.
I know. So Mike, do you have any upcoming projects or anything to plug, or any news on FantasticLand?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, you can head over to mikebockoven.com, where I have where a lot of my short stories live. I have a second novel, which is a werewolf thing set in the middle of Nebraska that's kind of fun. And I'm always writing and getting a few things going. I don't have anything directly in the pipeline, but I'm editing. I've got a board right over there in my office that's got my latest novel on it that is broken down into cards. And of course, I'm not all that great an editor, so I'm going through and starting something else. So it's always kind of chasing what you're excited about in the moment. But yeah, if you can head over to MikeBockoven.com. You can follow me at Bockoven Books on Facebook, because there is a very talented pencil artist named Mike Bockoven who got there before me, and and yeah, I appreciate, I understand uh, how few people out there are in the literary space anymore, and just that the fact that anyone finds my work is just still just makes my brain explode. So thank you for everything that's, all the attention that I've gotten. It's appreciated.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
I know, it's such a great book.
Yeah, and so I'm going to turn to you, Michelle, now, asking about what drew you to this story?
Well, it was a recommendation on Goodreads, which I'm on, and I read it a few years ago, right after it first came out, and I just loved it. I just thought it was a great book. And then about a year or so later, I listened to it on Audible. The two actors who play all the characters did an amazing job with it, and it was just fun. So when this pandemic hit, you and I, Briel, were in a show that got closed down before we were finished.
Yeah.
And like a lot of artists, was going a little stir crazy about what to do with all this extra time and, basically being sequestered. So I started listening to some old Audibles that I hadn't listened to in a while, and I started listening to FantasticLand again. And I just kept thinking this would make a really good virtual production. And what happens with me when I write on something, it starts off as an idea in my head, and then it keeps knocking at me and bothering me until I address it. And so I decided to reach out to Mike on Goodreads and ask him if he would allow me to adapt his novel into a virtual production for Town Hall Theater, where I serve on the board and I chair the artistic programming committee. And at the time, I didn't know, if he would respond or not. But he did a few weeks later, and from there on in, we were good as gold. I was really amazed at how, I'm amazed that from the beginning you trusted me with your novel, and then I pitched the idea to Town Hall at a board meeting, and they liked it, and here we are. 6-7 months later.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was really easy to trust you because you got it right off the bat. I mean, that was pretty evident from our first conversations. Like, yeah, you understand. What I was trying to do, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a great, and it's so much fun, and it is very different. This is something that's definitely different for Town Hall to be doing. But I've always been the kind of person that if I want to see something on stage and I'm not seeing it, then I'll create it. That's how I am. I'll jump in with both feet and never ever stop to think about not being able to succeed. Which I've crashed and burned a few times, but for the most part, all my successes have been because I've just taken that leap and I just go for it. And I surround myself with good people to work with so that it helps execute that dream.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you tell us just a little bit more about the process of how you adapted it?
Well, like I told Mike, I don't intend on changing a lot of your words because that's what I loved about the book is all the conversation. I'm a big fan of good conversation. And this, of course, is loaded with it because it's all done in first person, interviews. So, but as I was going through it, we had so many wonderful people who auditioned or who expressed an interest that I felt the need to maybe create an extra character or two. Some of the women who auditioned really blew me away. So I changed some of the characters from men to women, just a couple. But for the most part, it's Mike's words. I would say maybe 10% is mine. Some of the added characters and stuff, and just maybe switching some lines around here and there. But I break up the order in which the story is told. I kind of run a few narrations together that go, kind of dovetail around each other, just to kind of break it up and give it a little bit of flavor, because it is something that I wish we could do it like a movie where you can have all the action and everything, but it's not like that. It's a documentary. It's a mockumentary. And I love, documentaries. So doing something like this is so cool. It's just so cool.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yay.
Yeah. And it's a great story. It's a great story. I think people are going to love it. They're going to laugh. They're going to be horrified, and some things are thought provoking. I just think it's got every element for every kind of person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can you tell us a little about, Michelle, the role that Gretchen plays, Adrienne Jakes, how is that role different in your adaptation than the novel? Is it different?
The obvious difference is it was Adrienne Jakes was originally Adam Jakes, a male. Mm-hmm. But to tell you the truth, the first part of the adaptation I started with was the Hockney interview with Adrienne Jakes. That was the first scene I did. And I felt in the middle of, adapting it, I felt like it would be more compelling if it were a female interviewing him because of the, hold on. Sorry. Because of the control that he tries to hold on to and maintain. I thought it might be a little more intimidating for Adrienne to keep it together if he's getting under her skin. And that's why I included the line where he asked her if she's a Mrs. or a Ms. Because I think he wants to unnerve her because she isn't falling into his spell as easily as everybody else. And that's a way to kind of get at her. And then hopefully he addresses her a little differently when he realizes she's single. Like he's trying to manipulate the situation to his favor, however he can, with someone like her.
See, just like I said, understood it right away. It's like you're not wrong about that gender dynamic switch making a pretty big difference. To be honest, that's a great idea.
Thank you. Well, we writers, we come up with it.
Yeah. It's all up there.
And Michelle, do you have any upcoming projects to plug, or anything you want to share with our audience today of stuff you have going on after the world of FantasticLand?
I know. Actually, it's another project for Town Hall. It's a musical project. We're going to be gathering together artists to perform songs about America. Because I think after the crazy year we've had, we need some come together, some kumbaya. So we're going to be doing kind of what I call a tour of courts in the Lafayette area, in my area, where groups of performers go out and perform for these designated courts outside, social distancing, various songs that make up our country, songs from all different ethnic, national backgrounds, whatever. And then we'll culminate that into a concert at a outdoor venue where everybody involved over the summer performs. And so that's my next project that I actually started working on. I've gathered some music and I'll be working actually with number one on that. She's going to be helping me with music. And then once we have that set, we will be inviting artists who would like to perform for us. We're hoping to have about 10. And my stepfather, who manages several professional bands all over the Bay Area, is going to be lending us one of his bands for backup. So that's great. And all of this, of course, is still to help Town Hall because, like other theater companies, we've suffered greatly during this pandemic, having to cancel our season and not be able to have a follow-up season. So the money we normally would get from, people visiting our theater and seeing our shows and doing school, activities and stuff has dried up. So this is just another way to help. So that's my next project.
Yay. Well, we should chat on that. My mom lives at the end of a court in Lafayette. So we can definitely, we
can visit her court too.
Yeah. So sort of speaking of Adrienne Jakes, let's turn to Gretchen, our amazing actress, Adrienne, who plays Adrienne Jakes. Can you tell us a little bit about the character from your perspective in playing her?
Yeah, it was really interesting thinking about how to play a reporter, because I think, initially when you go into it, you think, okay, well, how can I be reporter speak and very polished and very poised and almost neutral. And I think, when I was talking to Homminga, our director, about it, it was really about figuring out what Adrienne's journey was, because she's one of the few characters, or really the only character that you see at various points in the play. She isn't telling the story, but you get to see how she's affected, and she's almost this proxy for the audience, where you kind of go in and it is a fascinating story. And oh my gosh, how compelling and how wonderful. And then by the end of it, you're really moved and incredibly sad by the story. And so, I think for her, as I think about her and her journey, I really think she, saw this as something to sort of capitalize on and, sort of make her mark and do a really good job of, and try to write the authoritative book or create the authoritative documentary on this. And I think at the end of the day, she gets really upset with herself for participating in the commodification of tragedy.
Mm-hmm. That's,
So, I mean, it's interesting. I was really excited to get this role. Michelle called me. So I'm also, full disclosure, I'm also on the board at Town Hall. And Michelle and I worked together in October rather, on another piece that we did for Town Hall. And as we were talking about that, she said, you should really read this great book called FantasticLand. Mm-hmm. It would make a really cool virtual production. And I think one of the great things about this book and this production is that we're not just trying to take a play and do it virtually, right? It's a play that translates perfectly to a virtual environment. I don't know that this show could be done on the stage. I don't think it could, but it translates perfectly to a virtual series kind of production. Mm-hmm. And so works within the parameters that we have, rather than just trying to pretend that those parameters don't exist. And so I think that's what was so exciting for me anyway, when we talked about this, when Michelle and I talked about it, because, I think for Town Hall, we want to put something out there into the world, and we want, we still want to have some sort of programming, but you don't want to do it poorly. You want to make sure it works for the medium that we have. And so I am so thrilled that this has come together. I'm so excited. And I think, one of the great things too, is we have actors from all over the country. And that also kind of lends to the virtual storytelling that we were able to do. So it's been a fascinating experience as an actor. It's been a really cool experience as a board member, watching the whole thing come together. And I'm just so excited for people to see it.
Yay!
Yep.
So Gretchen, can you tell us a little bit about what the process was, sort of preparing for the role in your own home, sort of solo? It's a very different experience as an actor than being in the rehearsal room, and sort of the home recording setup and what that experience was like.
Yeah. Well, I will say that the setup that I have for Adrienne, I ended up liking so much, so I just kept it as my office. So when you see me as Adrienne, this is what it looks like. And I probably should have changed it. But yeah, it is a different beast, because so much for me about my process, and everybody works differently, but I really kind of find the character by moving with her and by being with other people and figuring out how I react to other people. And that's kind of how everything sort of comes together. And then without that, it's a very solitary experience. And so that was different. And I'd done another show previously where I was able to sort of have that as well. But so I think for me, I really, we were lucky though. I think we had a lot of rehearsals. And so I met a lot with our director, Homminga, and with Michelle Hosselton, who is our production manager. And we found the beats and found that journey together. And so it helped me really to kind of figure out how to differentiate and how to have a really fulfilling sort of character arc for her. And again, being sort of that proxy for the audience. Yeah, so it was fun. I think one of the other different things about doing this is, you know, in a play you get to like, you start and you do the whole production and then you're done. And you go on this fabulous journey every single night and it goes in order. And I don't do film. You know, that's not my jam. But this was out of order. And so again was like, okay, wait, what's come before? What's come after? How is she feeling right now? Okay, we can do this. And so the first thing I recorded was the Hockney interview, which comes at the very end of the show. And so it was just so interesting to me because it was almost like a little taste into what I guess being in a film would be like, because nothing is really filmed in order. So, but it was a lot of fun, I have to say. And like for the virtual setup, I wish you could see. I mean, I've got like a ring light here, I've got my microphone here, like it's just all like, you know. And I think the other challenge for me is I'm a mother of two. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and so getting them to stay away, and just. I mean, you know, I had moments where I was just like, hey, I think I've got this taken. All of a sudden, like this little 7-year-old feet, Mommy, what are you doing? Mommy.
Actually, you know that there's some audience questions, and you kind of touched on.
I'm gonna get to them.
Oh, okay.
That's for in a little bit.
Oh,
we will
sorry.
get to them.
I'm jumping the gun. You know,
it's okay. I have a format. It's okay.
Sorry.
Gretchen, that's really funny because I was a reporter for 7 years. My wife and I were both reporters, both at the same newspaper for 7 years, and we had both our daughters while we were both reporters, and I relate to that in a big bad way. Just, you know, there were times when you would have to take a diaper bag and a kid to a city council meeting, and it was not great, but you got it done. You know,
you have to do
it. You do what you got to do, right?
you hit the deadline and you change the diaper and you move forward. Yeah,
I know it's amazing what you can do when you have to.
Yeah.
Well, what like a blessing and like just a wonderful thing that you actually get to like take this journey along the show. For my character, Miranda Tots, I am literally like in the first chunk, and I really serve as some exposition of like the storm and what happened. So Miranda Tots is the former director of the Palm Beach Treasure Cove American Red Cross. And so from what I glean is that, you know, she probably got a lot of blame for what happened and the response. And so she's like, her interview is like her saying like, I'm going to set the record straight. Like, you know, I got to tell my side of the story, and it wasn't our fault. And it's, again, the whole play is it's shifting the blame. Who's to blame, right? So, you know, it's so I can't wait to see your journey and see everyone else's journey in this series. And I'm describing people, it's like if a play met Netflix, like it's going to be, you know, they can watch it when those things, you know, air, and they can watch it on their own time. And it's going to be like, I think such a wonderful experience for our Town Hall Theater audience, and hopefully it'll reach far and wide. So thank you, Gretchen, for sharing all that. And so I'll speak a little bit about my experience as an actor in this. As I said, I agree with Gretchen. It was this very odd experience of sort of being isolated in a way. And I've done a little film here and there, but like I do a lot of live theater, and like I miss like being with my fellow actors. So it was definitely like wonderful to have Allie and do like a deep character study of this person. And we had a lot of conversations back and forth about that, and what the intention of the character was. And I think it's really important. My role is setting the scene, right? And I think the first couple interviews are really setting the scene of what is to come. She's not necessarily involved directly in what has happened, but she helped set up the situation. So it's been really fun playing her. And I've had this, it's, again, as a perfectionist, like in theater, you just do it, but like filming yourself, you're like, oh, I need to take another take. Oh, let me try that one. Let me just tweak that right there. So, it's like you have to sort of like be your own director in a way. Like you've had your conversation with Allie, but once you're filming it, you're solo. So that's been a new experience. It's been a really exciting experience.
Briel, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, ask me a question.
So I think one of the cool things, and I think really one of the hard things for most of the actors, not for me, but most of the other actors, is they had 4 to 5 huge single-spaced 11-point font monologues to memorize, 5-page monologues to memorize. And it was a lot of text, and it was just a lot of lines. And listen, I mean, I'm an actor. I get asked, how did you memorize all those lines? I get that, question a lot. And, it's everyone has their own process, but for this, it's like, it's very rare to have a chunk of dialogue where you are just speaking for 10 to 15 minutes. How did you approach that? Just in terms of the memorization, and how were you able to get out of your head in order to deliver that in such a cool way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually was speaking to someone else about this. I was like, I did memorize my three full pages of monologue for not, and it was really important to me that I do that. So I think I thought of it, but because it's sort of broken in chunks, I sort of would memorize in chunks and then find sort of the through line together. So like, there's, a couple chunks that like really feel like they go together. So I would start there and like find those connecting pieces. And I think as an actor, we practice memorization a lot, and we're, it had been about a year since most of us had to do that. But, I think it's also a muscle you build. And the show that Michelle and I did right before the pandemic shut down, I a week before we opened was bumped to a lead role. And you just have to dive in and like memorize and like do it. And so I think it's also that it's like, you're just like, okay, I know I need to do this. So like, I'm going to work on chunks and I'm just going to keep on going it over and over. I like to some people write, I type things out to help me with my memorization. And then a lot of it is just talking to myself like a crazy person.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talking to myself too.
Yeah. And then finding, you have to find, because the person's not really there, but I'm imagining them and finding those shifts of beats and what is their reaction and, that all the stuff that you do just as an actor. So I think that was sort of how I approached it. But yeah, so it was just, it was a lot, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And what else? And so, the other thing I was going to say, so missing that camaraderie of the cast, a group of us who did the full Monty, Michelle included, started to do we would do our own little Zooms. So we felt like we were in rehearsal together, and we would do a game night, or we would get, do a check-in of how is everyone doing with memorization? How's everything going? And so that it's, it just sort of gives that sense of being in the cast that you miss.
Yeah.
And that sense of camaraderie throughout it. And I'm also just so glad to be part of this project. Like I said, this is my, I think, 7th project with Michelle. And I was really lucky. She was telling me about it, and she actually sent me part of an early draft that I got to read and learn what she was doing. And I was like, this is so cool. This is so cool. Tell me more about it. So I think that is a little bit about that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're going to get to our audience questions now, Michelle. So let's go to our first audience question. It's for the whole group. Which character, if any, do you identify with the most?
I always made a joke that if they ever do a filmed property, I'm going to be like a corpse floating in one of the lakes. I'm not making it real far. I'm not like one of the leaders. I'm not one of the followers. I'm probably one of those who trips over his own shoelaces and knocks his head against a rock and is out pretty early. That's kind of always where I thought horror movies would fit in my own personal physicality and mental toughness, I think.
So, not in other words, we should not hang with you.
No. It's like all those shows about zombie survivors. It's like, oh no. I'm one of those horde over there. Yeah.
I think I would definitely be Clara Ann, because that's just how I go in survival mode. And it's funny you mentioned zombies. Huh?
Tell us a little bit about Clara Ann.
Oh, well, I don't want to give too much away, but I think people will be surprised at her initial response or the opening of her interview. What she has to say about her role during FantasticLand is so different than the way everybody else starts their narrative, that she came out a fighter, and I think that's how I would be. I would go into survival mode, and I always joked about the zombie apocalypse that was supposed to come in 2012. I would tell people, stick with me and you'll survive. You might be missing a limb or two, but you'll be alive. And that's kind of why I think I would most identify with Clara Ann, for sure.
I think for me, I guess it depends on what stage of life I'm talking about. I think if, when I was that age, as a lot of the young people in FantasticLand are, I probably would have been one of the fighters, either a shop girl or a Deadpool, like definitely, in one of the tribes and trying to, make it work. And, I'd like to think I wouldn't be a corpse floating. I probably would be. I think now at this age that I'm at, I probably, and I'm blanking on the name, I'm so sorry, I'm not as good with all the character names as I should be, but I'd probably be the one running the medical tent and just trying to maintain neutrality and trying to make sure everyone was okay, and just really trying to stay out and keep my head down and just be that, be Switzerland for everybody.
Yeah.
Do the best you can for the most people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd be coming to your tent taking stuff. Go ahead.
So our next audience question is for Michelle. Have you ever reached out to another author to adapt their work before? Or is it something you think you might do again?
Yeah, this is the first time I've done that. So the pandemic did, pushes you to think outside the box. So, but yeah, I think I would again if I saw something that I felt compelled enough to want to do it. I don't anticipate anything after this to be as wonderful as this experience. I think we're a little spoiled by this, but I would like to hope that down the line I could do this again and get the cooperation of another author. But we'll see. Now that the door is open, I plan on completely walking through.
Good. Yeah. So this is an audience question for us actors, me and Gretchen. What was the experience filming yourself from home, and what was maybe the most fun or the biggest challenge? So we sort of touched on this.
But what about for you? We didn't talk about it for you.
Right. Well, I think the challenge is that you're doing it to yourself. There's no one else there. Right. And I haven't done a lot of self-tapes. This is still I learned how to use iMovie, in March when I was having to teach virtually. I'm a preschool teacher by day. So learning how to put things together, I had to learn that real quick. Because initially we did YouTube videos. So but I think the coolest part about all of this and us sort of working independently is we know that we're part of a puzzle. We're our own piece of the puzzle. And it's going to be so cool to see all those pieces put together.
Yeah.
I think other than that, I think the challenge of finding the right angle. I also have my ring light set up, and it has a stand with, I put my phone on for my videoing, and I get really, again, I'm frustrated. I'm fuck, I need to take that again. Or I say that word, you get in your head about words all of a sudden. You're what did I just say? What was that word I said?
Yeah. Or you you stumble over the same one constantly, and it's just like, how is this not happening? I just need to say the word "the." It's just
just that. But I think that was a challenge, is like sort of like policing yourself and getting yourself to be like this is my best take and I'm going to send it along. But I think what was the most fun was also like really diving deep into who this character was and like all the imagination that goes along with it. And I've always done like, think about like, the before and the after of the character. And, I'm very an actor-y actor, just how my training or whatever. But I think it's so fun to like know your little piece and then to get to see it put all together. I can't wait. And I know our audience can't wait.
Yay. Yeah. I know they can't.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Gretchen? Yeah, sorry.
No, just one little technical thing. So I used to wear contacts all the time. I'm unable to anymore. And that's kind of a new phenomenon for me. And so trying to find a ring light that is not going to reflect my glasses, trying to find an angle that's like up on a tripod and like angled down on me right now, it's very weird. And so it's, so that part was really, really tricky, I think. And so someone needs to talk to glasses makers or ring light makers because like people wear glasses and still ring lights.
It's true.
It's true. Yeah.
Oh, I think the other thing is like focus is hard sometimes because like especially in this, I was like my focus had to be like away from the camera, but like still center enough so you like see the face and like I could see myself out of the corner of my eye. And so watching yourself do stuff like that, like when you're on stage, you're not ever thinking about what you're looking like, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, what is that weird thing I just did?
Right. The other challenge that I had was trying to, and I filmed a lot of myself on the same day, but when I didn't, it was like, okay, I have to make sure that my hair is exactly the same as it was. I have to make sure my makeup is exactly the same as it was.
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff. I'm like, I am not, like, even when I do theatrical productions, I'm just like the person who's like, how do I do makeup again? I don't know. I'm terrible. And so, that piece for me was really tricky. And you kind of understand now why like there's some like continuity errors in filming because there's only so much to pay attention to, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So our last audience question is for Mike. Can you tell us about some of your FantasticLand fan art?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've got 2 or 3, and this just blows my mind. I mean, when I first talked to Michelle, it was just my philosophy has always been like once it's out in a book form, the art is out of my hands, right? Then other people kind of go and do other things with it, and which is why I was so delighted that she reached out. But I have 2 pieces up in my office, and I don't want to shake the camera around too much to show them to you. One of them is there's a artist that I met on Instagram. His name is Chris Dobler, who did a skateboard for me, and it's got the bloody stanchion on it, and it's got the exclamation point and a few other things. I might be able to grab it off the wall here in a second. And then there was another artist, John Brexon, who created a warthog painting for me. And it's hanging right above my office right now, and it's got the warthogs, and man, he nailed it. It was very, very close to what was going on in my head when that happened. And then for this show, someone made a map of FantasticLand that I have to say kind of resembles a skull a little bit, which was great. Yeah. And it's like, it's so much fun when you can spark something in someone else and art can continue from art. That's like the highest praise that I think I can take from this is just the idea that other people are taking what I did and ran with it, and that's awesome.
So that artist who made that was Paul Garber. Michelle says
Paul Garber. Cool.
He created that map. So one more question for Mike: when you created FantasticLand, did you ever imagine it would be brought to life like this?
You always kind of have suspicions and hopes, right? But FantasticLand was my first novel, and I really didn't know what I was doing. Not that I'm an old hand now, but it was just kind of the thing where the thing that sucks. Theater is fun because you work with people and you're together and you do a thing, right? And that thing exists whether 2 people see it or 200 people see it or 2,000 people see it. It is. Maybe you get the commemorative T-shirt, maybe not, but you have those memories of being up on stage. If you want to be an author, step 1, and this is why it's such a terrible racket, is step 1 is write a book. And then you go find an agent and you go find, and maybe it gets published and maybe it doesn't. And maybe they change it to the point where it's unrecognizable and maybe they don't. And there are just 7 or 8 really huge steps that you have to get kind of lucky on in order to ever see anything come of it. So when I was writing it, I was like, no, I don't know that this is ever going to go beyond my immediate family and friends. And I honestly believe that because I knew I'd researched what those steps were. And the fact that it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going is so much more than I thought would happen. And I'm thankful for it each and every day.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. And do you guys have any questions for each other before we move on to our last piece of trivia?
Oh no, it's been pretty good.
No? Okay. Well, then let's move on to our trivia for our 3 guests. So this is theme park trivia. Ooh. Our first question: at 456 feet, what's the world's tallest roller coaster? Now I'm going to give you 3 options: A, B, and C. So A, King Ka in Jackson Township, New Jersey. B, Top Thrill Dragster. Or C, Westport Big and Tall. Think about it.
Do we get the locations of the other 2 roller coasters?
They did not provide me with that. I am working from what I was provided with.
Got it.
I would say A. I'm just gonna say A.
I'm gonna go with B.
Sure, I'll be contrarian and say C.
Okay, well, the answer is Michelle is right. It is King Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson Township, New Jersey.
I'm not going to admit, but I am admitting. I watch all those roller coaster shows on Netflix and stuff about the biggest, tallest, fastest, largest roller coasters because I love roller coasters.
Yeah, a little trivia. When it opened in 2005, it was also the fastest roller coaster in the world. So
yeah,
it is tallest, and when it opened, the fastest. Okay.
Amazing.
Number 2. Cotton candy is a popular treat in FantasticLand's Fairy Prairie. Which country refers to cotton candy as fairy floss? A, England. B, Finland. C, Brazil.
A, England.
I'm going with B again. This sounds like something Scandinavian.
I would say A, England.
Gretchen is right. It is B, Finland.
No, wait, Mike is right. He said
that's Mike.
Sorry, Mike is right. Finland. Sorry, I missed. Mike is right. Finland. Other names for cotton candy are candy floss, sugar spider, ghost breath, and Papa's beer. So Mike got that one.
Sugar spider.
So word, the land fairy prairie, I had the hardest time saying. I kept saying fairy. And Michelle Hockney, our production manager, was listening to me record, and I just kind of glossed over it, and she was like, "It said prairie." And I had the hardest time with that one.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah. It is.
Even sometimes, if you say
I apologize.
If you say FantasticLand over and over, I was like, FantasticLand. I was like, what? Like, it would come out weird, and I was like, oops, sorry, let me take that again.
FantasticLand.
You could throw a little German stank on it, FantasticLand,
That's more like it.
All of a sudden, it's a different story.
Yeah, that's a different novel.
Okay, number 3. When Disneyland opened in 1955, what year was Tomorrowland supposed to be depicting? A, 1986, B, 2001, and C, 1998.
2001.
I'm gonna guess C, 1998.
I'll say A, 1986.
Why are we all so different?
Okay, so the answer is 1986.
Oh.
Attractions included the World Beneath Us, Tomorrowland Boats, and the Aluminum Hall of Fame.
The Aluminum Hall of Fame.
So fun.
There are some just amazing rides and attractions that have come and gone from Disney that you can read books about that are just amazing.
When I went to Tomorrowland in the late 90s, they had the television flat screen TVs up on the wall. We went to the Mall of Tomorrow and the Home of Tomorrow. And I remember being in there with my niece, Andrea, and my friend Pauline, and my cousin Tasha. The four of us went together. And we were watching television on the wall in these slender, what looked like picture frames. And I remember I kept saying, there's no way that's a TV. There's no way we're ever going to watch TV on a wall. And it's no way it's ever going to be that skinny. And I remember coming back from Disneyland and telling people about the Mall of Tomorrow and the Home of Tomorrow. And like, they had televisions on the wall. Like, how is anybody supposed to watch TV on a wall? And look at us now. Like, that's all we do.
Yeah.
These flat screen TVs. So they've always been ahead of the curve. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So our last trivia question for the prize of the winner of the Sam Garlic Excellence for Leadership Award. So this is for tiebreaker, you guys. Yes, Sam Garlic
That's
Leadership
pretty good.
Award.
Yeah,
I love it.
I don't know if I want to win that award.
yeah.
Which notorious amusement park had a dark reputation as the deadliest and most dangerous in the country? So I'm guessing in the U.S. So A is Action Park. B, Super Fun Adventureland. C, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom.
You know, I grew up. I'm in Nebraska right now, and because it's where I live, and about 100 miles away from me, there's a place called Adventureland. Dead serious, and I don't think I've heard of anyone dying there, so I'm not going to guess that one.
Okay.
I think if it's the same as I'm thinking of, I think it's Action Park, because there was a whole HBO documentary of this like weird water slide that people would go down, and then like people would like literally like fly off of it because they made it too steep, and then like the angles just weren't right, and people were like, "There's a whole HBO documentary. It's crazy."
Oh wow!
I have to check that out. What's it called?
Action Park.
I think it's Action Park. I don't remember. I don't. That's
the name of the documentary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you all are correct. It's Action Park. So Action Park had 3 attraction areas: Alpine Center, Motor World, and Water World. And it had a reputation for poorly designed rides, under-trained staff, and intoxicated guests.
Ooh.
One of its many nicknames was Class Action Park, because all the class action lawsuits.
That's the name of the documentary.
Yeah.
It's so Class Action Park.
You know what?
Class Action Park.
I have to
You
look that up.
all are winners because you guys tied. So you all
Really?
are award recipients of the Sam Garlic leadership.
I don't want that.
Leadership and excellence in leadership.
Oh my God.
So congratulations, Mazel Tov. We made it through.
Wow.
All right. So I want to thank all of you 3 for joining me today, for joining our audience, for joining us. And if you want to see, this is to our audience, if you want to see tomorrow's mega size 2-episode premiere of FantasticLand, which I'm in one of those episodes, my big star breakout, head over to townhalltheater.com/FantasticLand, and you can donate today and get your pass to see all these amazing episodes that are going to be coming together. So I want to thank Mike Bockoven, Michelle Ianiro, and Gretchen Lee Salter, and all the volunteers who put on this one-of-a-kind fundraising event for Town Hall Theater. Again, I'm Briel Pomerantz, and I'll see you at FantasticLand. And stay tuned for the trailer. Check it out.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Why do I think it happened?
I accepted for the first time that they were people who could kill us.
At first, it sounded like an urban legend, far too out there to be real. Photos soon emerged. Heads on spikes outside of rides, corpses floating in detention centers, and viscera decaying in the humid Florida sun.
No, we're not safe. But neither are they.
Did you ever go to FantasticLand?
FantasticLand.
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 FantasticLand, where fun is guaranteed, was bathed in blood.